Welcome to Spirit of Life radio show. I'm Jim Toole, otherwise known as Just Jim for the last year. We just changed the show's name this month, this year, this new decade of life we're living in and moving forward in. And we're here to bring a little inspiration, a little information, a little fun. Can't have life without some fun. To hopefully open some windows to have you see maybe life a little differently, or shed a little bit more light, or maybe a doorway for you to walk through and experience your life a little bit differently. I've been doing this for a long time and enjoy being able to share a little bit of my experience, strength, and hope with you. And we do that with varying formats, conversations, discussions, interviews. Today we'll be spending a little time with Elissa Bentsen, someone I've known for quite some time and been doing some very powerful work in the world. She's a graduate of Florida Atlantic University with a degree in social work and executive director of United Way agencies for 15 years and certified hypnotist, and took some training with Weiss, which has been really, really inspiring to her and really encouraging her to be able to share her ability to bring about and facilitate healing, practice as a therapist under the supervision of the licensed clinical social workers, and as a certified soul trauma healer, which we'll be talking about today. The focus of her work is past life regression and soul trauma healing to help people access root problems and discover how knowledge of the past and the release of negative energy can heal the mind, body, and soul in current time. She does a lot of work, and you know it's changing. Seminars, workshops, lectures in personal awareness and the benefits of experiencing a past life for healing. She also teaches soul trauma healing to those who wish to heal themselves, family, friends, or for professional certification. She lives here in Sarasota, where we're broadcasting our show, and is available for educational presentations, past life regression, soul trauma healing, by phone, Skype, in person, or distance healing. Welcome, Elissa.
Well, thank you, Jim. Thank you for having me.
Oh, I'm glad you're here. It's fun to be able to share different things with everybody, and for all of those who are joining us to make a difference in their lives. And I know that's a big part of who you are.
Yes, it is my mission.
It is your mission, our purpose. So we'll be doing a little bit of that together today. So, soul trauma healing. So we hear a lot about healing. Talk a little bit about that and how that compares to what people might see as energy healing.
Well, actually, soul trauma healing is energy healing. It's a shamanistic technique that's some 5,000 years old. And if you think about it, historically, probably every indigenous tribe has had a shaman. It works on the principle that the healer is manipulating the body's energy for well-being. It's kind of an exchange of energy, and there is a connection between the subconscious and conscious when someone is working on someone else and manipulating their energy for healing.
So it's where two or more are joined, and having that energy benefit each other, and the person, such as yourself, is helping facilitate the process by your connection to and working with the individual that's experiencing the healing.
Exactly.
Wonderful. And so what is that? What's the process that you use in soul trauma healing? It sounds like a powerful name, soul trauma healing. There's got to be a lot to it. So how does that work?
Well, it works on the principle that we have lived multiple lives, and in those lifetimes, we have experienced traumas or crises of some sort that affect the mind, the body, or the soul. And when those traumas occur, they leave a residue, if you will, of negative energy in our energy centers, which are our chakras. So I have three goals when I'm working with a client. One is to take that information of what actually happened, which is soul memory, and that's buried in the subconscious. And there's two ways to get at subconscious memory. One is hypnosis, and the other is channeling. So basically what I'm doing is channeling the information about the event, what happened specifically. And then the next goal is to find out how that particular event has affected the client in a specific way. And then the third goal is to remove that negative energy and call back the soul pieces that fragmented when the original trauma occurred. Soul pieces actually break off and go to the astral plane for comfort. The body needs them back. So when we call them back to reintegrate them back into the body, it's what creates the healing.
Well, so, I mean, we're looking at something that could be related to people who have even a situation that has occurred in their life, something traumatic. It has an effect on us. We kind of push them away, or we break them off or fragment them because we can't deal with them. And yet, in order to be whole, or as we would call healing, to bring wholeness back to our being, we're recovering those. So you're finding them, helping that client be aware of them, and facilitating through the process of reintegrating the benefits that fragment that was lost can have, and letting go of what doesn't. That's pretty amazing.
Well, you know, Brian Weiss has said many times, I've heard him say, that 85% of people's issues are related to a past life event, and only 15% are of the current life. So that's a lot of stuff stuck in the past.
Yeah, I mean, and can you imagine? It's like, for those who may not be familiar with past life regression or past lives, you know, we'll be going through our day and have an experience, or our life and have an experience we don't recognize that we've actually experienced, or that we can remember a feeling, or something occurs within us or in our lives that we don't recognize, and that's like that leftover energy you were talking about, that residual energy from a trauma that may have occurred in another lifetime that we're experiencing in this one.
And it's also why some people react more strongly to certain kinds of events than another person might. Say, for instance, you've been betrayed many times in past lives. In your current life, you're highly sensitive to a betrayal. Whereas another person who may not have had multiple betrayals in past lives may be more able to cope with it.
So hidden pieces of
specific.
Yeah, and hidden pieces of the puzzle that we're not aware of unless we're experiencing them in our life right now.
Right, exactly.
And so you mentioned the hypnosis and channeling as the two different ways. So hypnosis kind of helps the client go back and experience something, and then the channeling then offers sort of a stream of consciousness relating to what you're experiencing that the client has experienced before. Those are the two kind of different ways of looking at it?
Right. If we're doing a past life regression, then I would be using hypnosis, and the client would actually be viewing the past life like a movie in the back of their head. So it's more direct, that they can see it. But given the time limits of doing a regression, which sometimes can take 2-3 hours, you pretty much only can explore in depth one life. With soul trauma healing, we can explore multiple lives. So it's a more comprehensive approach.
Wow, it sounds like it. And you were talking about energy centers or chakras. Most people are familiar with those primary chakras that run vertical up and down in our being. So what are the chakras that you work with when you're doing this kind of work?
Well, we do. We think of the 7 primary chakras, which would be the crown, the brow, the throat, the heart, solar plexus, sacral, and root. But actually, at this stage of Earth development and vibration, we have access to about 18 chakras, and I work with 11. So I work with 2 additional chakras in the body, 1 below the body and 1 above.
So like an extension of who we are, sort of.
Right.
I like to look at the chakras being energy centers that we experience in this incarnation, that it's an extension of the energy from source into and through us. And so you're talking about being aware of and working with chakras sort of above what we're aware of at our crown or the top chakra, and one below of what we're aware of at our lowest chakra or our root. And so you're kind of like extending your view or your expression of this work by looking at things a little bit more expansive.
Each chakra has an emotional component, and of course underneath of every physical there is an emotional, so we have to take that into account. But it also correlates to a physical part of the body. Now, within the body, we think the root chakra is the last, but it isn't. The knees are another chakra, and they relate to the feeling of being oppressed, of literally being on one's knees, as if someone's holding you down. And then there's chakras in the feet that have to do with forward or backward movement.
Well, all of those kinds of things would be related to how a trauma might affect us and the way we might experience that. That's powerful to be able to recognize those energies, to be able to convey to clients those relationships, and then they can then recognize, oh my God, yes, I have had that or experienced that. Oh, yes, that is keeping me from moving forward, or yes, that has made me feel down or suppressed in my life, and you're helping set them free from those limitations they don't even know they're carrying sometimes.
Right. The information that's buried in the subconscious can't be worked on by the conscious mind because the conscious mind isn't aware of it.
Right.
So our first task is to find out what happened. Well, now the client can make rational sense of it and relate to it. And I often hear people say, oh, yeah, that's true. That's exactly why I feel the way I do. Or I get it now. I understand now.
So how do you get that information? How does that work? How would somebody understand that you're working with them and you're getting this information about a past life? How do you receive that, or how are you able to convey that?
Well, channeling is, again, it's like watching a movie in my head. So I feel like my guides download a vision, if you will. It's like somebody dropped a movie in my head. But I also, sometimes they'll show me a symbol that has a particular meaning. For instance, if they show me a small child, it's an indication to me that the problem in their current life began in their childhood. And I can't help, given my background in psychotherapy, I can't help but add to that the fact that for most of us, our problems do begin in childhood. It's a question of what did you see in childhood? What did you experience that has impacted you? You know, there's a theory that anything a child sees or feels or experiences under the age of 7 or 8 years old is locked permanently in the subconscious. So in traditional therapy, what we're working on is trying to get at that information, peeling away layers, if you will, like an onion, until you get to the root, which began in childhood and has been forgotten. But
right,
with channeling,
go ahead.
They can show it to me.
Yeah.
They can show it to me right away.
That makes sense. And so as children, it makes sense. We're like sponges. We don't have any defenses or any way of like figuring out how to file, or we just take it in, and then we pile our perceptions as we grow up into adolescence and young adulthood and adulthood over and around that, kind of like the